people were in shock to hear what they heard.
In victim impact statements, friends and families of the victims expressed sadness, anger, and fear. Plus,
Doug Ford's cuts and privatization will make things worse for people.
The NDP reveals more leaked documents about the government's health care plans. The person who leaked them has been fired. And the warm temperatures may be a welcome change from the cold, but all that melting snow has to go somewhere. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. The grisly details surrounding the final moments of Bruce McArthur's victims were read out in court today on the first day of the serial killer's sentencing hearing. And a warning, some viewers may find the information disturbing. John Lancaster was in court today.
For 7 years, a killer preyed on men in Toronto's gay village. One by one, these 8 men vanished without a trace between 2010 and 2017. Then came a break. These security cameras captured partially obscured images of an older model red minivan with unique trim pulling up outside the home of Andrew Kinsman. The 49-year-old man got inside and was never seen again. Inside his apartment, a clue though, the name Bruce penciled in on the day of the disappearance. As friends and family searched for Kinsman, police used a Ministry of Transportation database to narrow down the owners of similar red minivans whose first names were Bruce. McArthur's name stood out due to his previous run-ins with police over allegations of domestic violence. His vehicle was found weeks later in a wrecker's yard. Inside, DNA belonging to McArthur and several of the missing men. A search of McArthur's apartment revealed another trove of evidence, a kit containing duct tape, ties, and syringes, and hundreds of pictures, some of Kinsman from years earlier when the two were friends, and worse, so-called staged photos of the dead, missing men wearing this fur coat and fur hat.
Hearing what I heard, it was gruesome and it was detailed, but then again, these family members and friends and colleagues needed to know.
The courtroom was told it was likely all of the men were strangled. But the court heard how McArthur slipped through the hands of police twice before being caught. In 2013, he was questioned after Majid Kayan disappeared, and in 2016, a man called 911 claiming McArthur had tried to strangle him. In both cases, McArthur was released. Many of the men had met McArthur through dating apps. At least 2 were never reported missing. One was homeless, the other living underground for fear of deportation. Police later found what little they had, pieces of jewelry, in McArthur's apartment. This is his bed where it's believed they were killed.
Now it's left an aura of distrust within the community of people and dating and relationships and talking about the mental and physical strains that it has put on people. People are hesitant to go out.
The court was also told about a 9th potential victim, that McArthur was under surveillance when police watched him bring a man into his apartment. Police, fearing the worst, burst into that apartment and found the man, identified only as John, tied to McArthur's bed. Further that, police also saw McArthur had created 8 electronic files containing photos of his 8 victims. He'd also created a 9th electronic file, naming it after the man who was tied to that bed. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
So undoubtedly a difficult day for friends and family members of the murdered men, some of them delivering victim impact statements as part of today's hearing. Ali Chasson tells us what was said.
When you think of the victims in this case, automatically you think of the 8 men. You don't necessarily think of the other lives that have been affected by this. I'm referring to, of course, the family and friends of these victims. And today we got a glimpse into their sorrow. We heard from Salim Essen's family saying, quote, "We can't come to terms with his savage murder. We also find it hard to believe that the killing of 8 innocent gay persons went unnoticed for 8 years. They hope his friends keep his memory alive and that people in the LGBTQ community will be able to live without fear." We also heard from Dean Lisowick's daughter. We didn't know he had a daughter. He was a homeless man here in Toronto, and she will never meet her father. She said, quote, "I have a child and a baby on the way, and unfortunately, one day they will ask about my father and where he is, and I'll have to tell them how he was taken away from the world." We also heard from Andrew Kinsman's sisters and friends of Skanda Navaratnam. Another thing to make note of today is that Bruce MacArthur sat in the prisoner's box mostly with his head down throughout the proceedings, but when the victim impact statements were being read, he looked up and listened. More victim impact statements will be read tomorrow. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
And you can find more on what we know about all 8 of MacArthur's victims online. Just head to cbc.ca/Toronto. To some of the other day's news now. A man is in life-threatening condition after a hit and run in Scarborough tonight. It happened in the area of Warden and McNichol shortly after 7. Multiple witnesses tell officers that the man was hit by one vehicle and then struck by a second. Now, police say a third vehicle may have also struck the man. Only the driver of that first car remained on the scene. Police are now looking for a small light-colored vehicle with significant front-end damage. Meanwhile, after police had blocked off the scene, a woman drove through the tape and T-boned a police cruiser. 2 officers in that car were in that police cruiser at the time. They were taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The woman was arrested, and police are looking at impairment as a possible factor in that crash. And a child was hurt at a daycare near Dundas and Roncesvalles today when part of the center's ceiling collapsed. Fortunately, the injuries were minor and parents were called to pick up the rest of the children. But fire crews say they are concerned about the structural integrity of the building. The city's building inspector was on the scene. She could not say whether snow buildup caused part of the ceiling to fall, but said it will likely be considered as a factor in the collapse. In Caledon, investigators continue to sift through the debris of a home blown to pieces by a blast early Sunday morning. A 54-year-old man was killed in that explosion, and tonight some families are seeing the full extent of the damage. Talia Ricci spent the day in Caledon and has the latest.
With police taped down and the debris strewn across the street slowly beginning to clear, for some residents today, it was their first glimpse at the scene that startled a community awake.
This is the first time I'm looking at it, actually, and we just saw that the house was gone, right? So you're in shock. Pretty well my kids were saying I was having a panic attack because I couldn't catch my breath.
A home leveled to its foundation. The man who died was the only person inside at the time. Residents say he was a familiar and friendly face in the tight-knit community.
Yeah, he was very jolly, friendly. Couldn't say nothing bad about it.
Fire crews evacuated the area surrounding the blast immediately afterwards. Residents tell CBC News they still don't know when they'll be able to return home.
Thank you.
They were good.
Yeah?
Yeah. All our pictures are down off the walls, things smashed inside. I couldn't believe it. It actually blew the doors open on the china cabinets and everything.
At least 7 to 9 homes sustained serious damage, but around 22 homes were damaged in total. We're talking walls that shifted, roofs that lifted up and dropped back down, and lots of broken windows. But even taking a step away from the pylons and the tape, you can still see pieces of roof on the ground.
We've had a high-order explosion here. So the blast pressure wave that went through here was more than 1,000 meters per second. So our debris field is very large.
An excavator is sifting through debris at the property where the explosion happened. They still aren't sure whether or not it was accidental. Crews now face the task of going to every home in the evacuated area to document damage.
Sometimes you'll see us on our hands and knees going through areas because we don't want to disrupt certain areas.
Throughout these difficult days, neighbors have come together to offer help.
There wasn't much that I could offer the community, but I've got the business. If they needed a drink, if I could do anything, I was here for them.
Proving what residents in Caledon already knew, that they have each other's backs.
You look out for one another.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Caledon.
Carla Kennedy's here with the first look at the forecast. We had a heat wave happening in southern Ontario today.
Did we ever? And in fact, record-setting heat for Toronto, 12 degrees, the old record 11 set back in 1991. So this is this afternoon. Windsor, your record just above 12 as well, and couldn't quite get there. So 9 degrees, still very mild, but not the case for the entire province. In fact, back towards Pickle Lake this afternoon, it was minus 23. Just doesn't seem fair, does it? That colder air that we had been experiencing experiencing last week, just receding a bit further north, but still in place. We're going to stay somewhat above seasonal, but only a little bit, and nothing like the temperatures we saw today as we move through the next couple of days. So those showers from this evening mostly tapering off and moving out overnight tonight through the rest of the night. We'll get into a gradual clearing trend that we'll be seeing too, setting us up for kind of variable skies through the day tomorrow between a mix of sun and clouds. There will be a system coming in late Tuesday, though, beginning to affect southwestern Ontario, freezing rain risk there. I'm going to talk more about that a little later in the show because there is a special weather statement. But for the city tonight, we're looking at that clearing trend, 0 for the low, and tomorrow afternoon, not 12, just 1 degree with that mix of sun and cloud, Mike.
Still, it's on this side of freezing. We'll take it.
It is, and it's still above seasonal, so
Okay.
There you go.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Well, today's warm temperatures sure took their toll on the snowbanks around town. All that melting snow, though, is leaving the city streets a mess. And now the Regional Conservation Authority has issued a flood watch tonight. Our City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly has more.
Stella Daskalakis says this sidewalk near her mother's East End home has been like this for days.
I did call the city and they said it would be cleared within 36 hours. They apologized. They didn't realize that it hadn't been cleared. This morning, still the same thing.
She says that's leaving the neighborhood's elderly residents housebound.
My mom is a senior with a walker. She hasn't been able to get out to do groceries, errands, anything. She lives right beside a senior's home. Everyone is stuck inside because this is the main street that goes up to the grocery store, to the shopping malls, to the bus stops. How are they supposed to get there?
While some neighborhoods are still digging out from the snow, others are bracing for flooding as the piles start to melt.
So I came in today just to make sure that everything's clean and dry.
This Danforth gift shop owner keeps some of the stock in the basement of her store, a spot that's flooded before.
I get a lot of runoff coming down to here. I usually have a pail that I scrape that off into, but even when that's totally free and open, with the snow that's been up outside, it quite often flows straight down into here.
It's a similar scene across the city, with piles becoming puddles, all thanks to rising temperatures.
We're still out there clearing up from the storm.
This city spokesperson says the flip-flopping weather adds an extra challenge.
We've had crews out all weekend uncovering catch basins because of this warming temperatures we're having, where we could have potential for flooding. So I think we uncovered about 1,100 catch basins. We removed snow from about 233 kilometers of roadways, and we'll continue to work on that until this storm, we can clean this up.
If you still have an issue with snow in your neighborhood, you can call the city at 311 to try and get them to take care of it. But they did tell me as well that a big part of the responsibility is on homeowners. You want to be checking your drain spouts to make sure they're clear. You want to be shoveling the snow away from your house so if it starts melting, it's not flooding on your property. And you want to be checking these guys, the sewer grates, to make sure that they're free of debris so that melting water has a place to go, especially with our forecast, which is calling for rain. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Still ahead, the NDP continues to sound off on leaked documents it claims show the PCs are heading towards healthcare privatization. Now, the PCs deny that's what's in the works. We'll break it all down coming up. Welcome back. York Regional Police releasing a video today that shows impaired driving can happen at any time of the day, almost anywhere, including a Wendy's drive-through window. Now, this video shows officers smashing the passenger side window after knocking on it repeatedly in an attempt to wake the driver. Police were called to the drive-thru in Aurora around 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. The car was running with the driver passed out inside. The man tested 4 times above the legal limit for alcohol. He was one of 21 drivers charged with impaired-related offenses in the past week alone. Hundreds of secondary students marched to Queen's Park today to protest the Ford government's recent cuts to the Ontario Students Assistance Program.
To me, it's just extraordinarily unjust.
Similar rallies were planned for a number of colleges and universities today. Students are upset with the end to a 6-month interest-free grace period on loans after graduation, as well as a new rule giving students the choice to opt out of fees that fund campus groups, student newspapers, and school events. Meanwhile, inside Queen's Park, an Ontario public servant was fired after leaking information to the opposition. The NDP, which released the documents, claimed they are proof the PC's plan to move towards privatizing healthcare services in the province. The health minister is again accusing the opposition of fear-mongering. Farah Morali has that story.
What we've decided to do is make these documents public because Mr. Ford is not telling the people of Ontario the truth.
4 days after the NDP leaked government draft legislation, Leader Andrea Horwath came back swinging.
Well, it's very clear. In fact, the documents outline specifically a number of areas where they are saying they will definitely privatize.
3 documents in total were leaked by the NDP today, 2 with the word confidential written on the cover. They make specific reference to Cabinet approving the full integrated care transformation plan and list the date of January 16th. It also shows that the interim board for the agency and their pay have been signed off and approved by the minister. One document makes specific reference to outsourcing services like inspections, laboratory, licensing, and even the air ambulance service Orange.
I will not be distracted by Andrea Horwath's shallow, partisan attempts to politicize healthcare.
Today, the health minister fired back, saying just what she said last week.
We will not be privatizing any of the services referenced today by Andrea Horwath. In fact, the document that she released today was an internal, nonpartisan public service document, which I have never seen.
The minister did concede some aspects of its plan to transform the healthcare system have been approved, but which ones, she wouldn't say.
What has been approved by Cabinet and what has not been?
She walked out as reporters threw that question to her. One thing the government would confirm, it's not taking the leaks lightly. A memo from the head of the Ontario Public Service confirmed the person behind the leak has been fired, saying, "I'm writing to confirm that as a result of our investigation into this matter, the employee responsible for this breach is no longer employed in the Ontario Public Service. The Ontario Provincial Police have also been notified." A move that's prompting some to question what's in the leaks.
There's government documents leaked all the time, municipally, federally, provincially, and it very rarely leads to people being fired or to, the police being called in to investigate. And I think that it's being done here because the dirt that's been dug up, for lack of a better term, has real meaning to it.
Andrea Horwath was asked today whether she thinks her party did enough to protect the source of those leaks, to which she didn't comment. She also didn't say definitively whether or not the party has more documents that it plans to leak in the coming days or weeks. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
It was a big night for the new guy. The Leafs' new defenseman, Jake Muzzin, gets his first goal as a Leaf. It was beautiful. As Toronto hosts Anaheim, we'll have highlights after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
The Leafs hosting the Ducks tonight. No scoring in the first, but Toronto soon makes up for that in the second. John Tavares rips home his 31st of the season to make it 1-0. Later, the Leafs' new defenseman, Jake Muzzin, fires at the net. His shot is stopped here, but Andreas Johnson shows great patience, collecting the rebound. That's 2-0 now. Muzzin takes over, though, late in the period. First, hammering Corey Perry here when the Ducks forward tries to get past. Then he draws a penalty from Nick Ritchie. And then on the ensuing power play, watch this, he unloads a one-timer. His first goal as a Leaf puts Toronto up 3-0. Third period, William Nylander would score his second of the season as the Leafs go on to take this one 6-1. Colette is back with her extended forecast. We're done with the warm temperatures. In fact, with that cool down, we got to start worrying about freezing rain.
We have to worry about freezing rain as a new system is going to be moving in. We also have to worry about, just with our temperatures cooling down a little bit, some of the melting we've been seeing refreezing. So lots of conditions that could be slippery out there. Lots of reasons we could be seeing slippery conditions, I should say. Freezing rain, this is a special weather statement because potentially it could last for several hours. So far, Environment Canada just issuing this for southwestern Ontario and our viewers watching from Windsor in that area. But this is for Tuesday night into Wednesday with the next system that'll be approaching. So the one we've been dealing with, the showers, that's moving out overnight tonight, a gradual clearing trend through the GTA and back towards southwestern Ontario as well. A gradual clearing trend setting up for probably mostly cloudy for southwest in the morning hours, then becoming a mix. And for the GTA, probably a little more sunshine in there, but variable through the day with the cloud cover. But then late in the day, Tuesday overnight into Wednesday, this is 3 a.m. where I've stopped this, you can see that freezing rain potential significant for southwestern Ontario. That will continue tracking eastward, coming towards the GTA through the day on Wednesday, and eventually we should see it turning over to some showery activity as the temperature comes up a little bit above freezing, but could again be an extended period of time to deal with that freezing rain. We may see some watches, warnings go up as we get a little bit closer to the event. Overnight tonight in southwestern Ontario, lows of -1. The showers moving out, keeping some of that cloud cover for early in the day tomorrow, and then more sunshine into the afternoon. And the high's going to hover there right around freezing, up to 1 degree. Nothing like the temperatures from today with that Windsor high of 9 degrees. Overnight tonight, we're looking at 0 to -1 with the exception of St. Catharines. There you'll be at 1 degree. Showers moving away, so gradual clearing and breaking up of the cloud cover. And then through the day tomorrow, those temperatures just trying to get above the freezing mark may not make it for you in Markham, but should be handily above there in St. Catharines, and in between we're going with 1 degree for the city. So into Wednesday, seeing that freezing rain potential as the system moves through, and you can see the colder air Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, it comes back up, getting close to freezing. Could still be seeing some freezing rain or drizzle into Thursday before the temperature comes up to 2 degrees and it changes over to showers. So a couple of really tricky days that we have in there, Mike.
Watch out for the ice. Okay, thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
The Lunar New Year kicks off tomorrow, and there was a celebration today at City Hall to ring in the Year of the Pig.
I'd like to take this opportunity then to wish everyone good health, happiness, and prosperity in 2019 and the Year of the Pig.
The Lunar New Year reception was co-hosted by the mayor and the Toronto Chinese Business Association. Now, according to tradition, the Year of the Pig will bring joy, friendship, good fortune, and trust. The mayor and Chinese business leaders took part in an eye-dotting ceremony to wake up the sleeping dragon for the new year. That's our newscast for tonight. Our colleagues at Metro Morning will be talking more about the Lunar New Year tomorrow, from how some Vietnamese traditions differ from Chinese traditions. And of course, they'll be looking at some of the best Lunar New Year's food. You can catch that tomorrow on Metro Morning on CBC Radio 1 right here in Toronto. I'll see you back here on CBC Television at 11 o'clock. Before we go, some more pictures of that celebration at City Hall today. Good night.